Welcome to the Testaments of Faith, the story of Job. Chapter 1. The Most Righteous Man on Earth. In the heart of the land of Uz, where the wind swept across vast golden fields and the mountains stood as sentinels of time, lived a man named Job. Wealthy in possessions and blessed with many descendants, he owned countless herds, vast lands, and faithful servants who cared for his estate. But above all material wealth, Job was a man of integrity and deep devotion to God. His days were marked by acts of justice, compassion, and unwavering faith in the Creator. He made offerings not only for himself but also for his children, fearing that they might sin in thought or word. He was a man of immeasurable faith, whose life shone like a beacon before the heavens. In the unseen realms of the cosmos, where mortal eyes could not reach, the sons of God gathered before the Almighty. Among them was Satan, the adversary, who roamed the earth seeking whom he might devour. God, knowing Job's integrity, asked, "Have you considered my servant Job? There is no one like him on earth, a man of integrity, upright, who fears God and shuns evil." But Satan, full of malice, replied, "Does Job fear God for nothing? Have you not placed a hedge around him and his household? Take away all that he has, and he will surely curse you." Then the Lord allowed Satan to touch Job's possessions, but not his life. The first test was about to begin. In a single day, darkness descended upon Job's household like an unrelenting storm. Messengers arrived one after another, bringing devastating news. His oxen and donkeys were stolen, his camels taken by raiders, and his servants slaughtered. But the worst tragedy was yet to come. A mighty wind arose from the desert, striking the house where his children were gathered, collapsing it upon them and taking all their lives. Job fell to the ground in mourning, tearing his robes in grief. Yet, even amidst his sorrow, his words echoed as a testimony of unshakable faith. "Naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked I will return. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord." Chapter 2. The trial intensifies. Even in the face of devastation, Job remained steadfast, refusing to curse God. But Satan, seeing that his faith was unbroken, returned to challenge the Creator. Skin for skin. A man will give all he has for his own life. But stretch out your hand and strike his flesh and bones, and he will surely curse you. God, knowing Job's heart, allowed his health to be afflicted, but his life was to be spared. Thus, the adversary descended upon him with a new blow, and soon Job's body was covered in painful sores from the soles of his feet to the top of his head. His flesh burned with agony, and he sat among the ashes, scraping his wounds with shards of pottery. Physical pain, however, was not his only torment. His wife, once his faithful companion, approached him with words filled with despair. "Do you still maintain your integrity? Curse God and die." But Job, though weak and tormented, answered her with calmness. "You speak as a foolish woman speaks. Shall we accept good from God and not trouble?" His faith did not waver, not even in the face of temptation to abandon hope. The heavens seemed silent, but Job's heart remained turned toward God. His anguish consumed him, but his soul stood firm like a rock, awaiting divine justice. News of Job's suffering spread throughout the land, and 3 of his friends, Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar, came to visit him. When they saw him from a distance, they barely recognized him, for his appearance was that of a man utterly devastated. They tore their robes in mourning and sat with him in silence for 7 days and 7 nights, for his suffering was great. Then Job broke the silence, letting out words of lament. "Cursed be the day I was born. Why did I not perish at birth? Why do my days prolong in suffering?" His heart overflowed with agony, and he cried out for answers. But what followed was not the relief he had hoped for, but a debate that would test his faith even further. Chapter 3. The Voices of Doubt. The solemn silence surrounding Job and his friends was finally broken when Eliphaz the Temanite spoke. With a solemn voice, he attempted to explain Job's suffering. Does the innocent perish? Where have the righteous ever been destroyed? His words carried worldly wisdom, but they were laced with a cruel insinuation. If Job suffered, it was because of some hidden sin. He spoke of visions and divine warnings, trying to convince Job that his misfortune was the result of his own transgressions. Job, weakened by pain, did not remain silent. With a sorrowful gaze, he replied, "If only my misery could be weighed and my suffering placed on the scales, it would outweigh all the sand of the seas." He did not deny God's sovereignty, but he cried out for understanding. He felt abandoned, as if his faithfulness had been forgotten. With a trembling voice, he asked, "What is mankind that you observe us and test us at every moment? Why do you not withdraw your hand from me?" In his anguish, Job longed for an explanation. But Bildad the Shuhite interrupted with even harsher words. "If your children have sinned against God, he gave them over to their own wrongdoing. But if you are pure and upright, he will restore your justice." Bildad's words echoed the belief that God rewards the righteous and punishes the wicked. However, to Job, this response was hollow. He knew his own integrity, yet he was submerged in suffering. Doubt loomed like a specter, but his faith did not break. Chapter 4. The Cry of the Wronged. At the height of his misery, Job lifted his voice to the heavens, crying out against the apparent injustice of God. Why do the wicked prosper while the righteous suffer? He did not blaspheme, but he sought understanding. His tired eyes beheld the world, seeing cruel kings reigning, thieves growing rich, and oppressors living in abundance. His soul ached, for while the wicked rejoiced, he, a just man, decayed in agony. Zophar the Naamathite erupted with an unrelenting response. "If God doubled your punishment, it would still be less than you deserve." He accused Job of arrogance, saying that no man could truly be pure before the Creator. To Zophar, there was no mystery. Job simply needed to accept his guilt and seek divine forgiveness. But Job, consumed by injustice, defended himself with fervor. "Do you judge yourselves righteous simply because my suffering favors you? The Almighty knows my heart, and He is my witness." Despite the sharp words of his friends, Job did not yield. His faith wavered, but it did not extinguish. He cried out to God, not in rebellion, but in desperation. He longed for an answer, for a sign that his suffering was not in vain. And then, when the silence seemed eternal, another voice arose. A voice that would change the course of his trial. Chapter 5. The Voice of the Unknown. Among Job's friends, a young man named Elihu, who had remained silent until now, finally broke the silence. "I have listened to your words, and yet none of you have comprehended God's purpose." Elihu did not accuse Job of sin, but he also did not align himself with his laments. He spoke of a God who teaches through pain, who speaks through suffering. Why do you argue with God without understanding? He speaks to man in many ways, but man does not perceive it. Elihu's words lingered in the air like a new revelation. He did not speak of punishment, but of learning. Suffering, according to him, was not merely a curse, but a means through which God shaped a man's character. To Job, this was something new. Could it be that his trial had a purpose beyond pain? Could God be teaching him something greater, something his limited vision had yet to grasp? As these thoughts consumed him, the wind began to blow stronger. The sky darkened with heavy clouds, and thunder rumbled across the heavens. Job and his friends lifted their eyes, for something extraordinary was about to happen. God, the creator of heaven and earth, was about to speak. Chapter 6. The Voice of God in the Whirlwind. The wind roared, and the skies darkened when, from the midst of the whirlwind, the voice of the Lord echoed. a sound so powerful it made the mountains tremble and silenced all men. God, who had permitted Job's trial, now manifested himself, not to explain, but to reveal his majesty. Who is this that darkens my counsel with words without knowledge? Gird up your loins like a man. I will question you, and you shall answer me. The divine voice filled the air like thunder, and then God began to question Job. Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? Tell me, if you have understanding. Who marked off its dimensions? Surely you know. Job, who had once questioned, was now confronted with the vastness and complexity of creation. God described the sea, the heavens, the wild beasts, and the unfathomable mysteries of the universe, demonstrating that his wisdom and power far surpassed human comprehension. Faced with the presence of the Almighty, Job remained prostrate and silent. The pain and doubts that had consumed him began to dissolve in the radiance of divine sovereignty. He realized that his questions were insignificant compared to the infinite knowledge of God. His journey of trial was nearing its resolution. Chapter 7: Job's Recognition. As God continued to speak, Job felt smaller with each revelation of the Creator's grandeur. The Lord presented majestic creatures like Behemoth and Leviathan, powerful beings no man could tame. Who can open the doors of its mouth? Around its teeth there is terror. Its snorting throws out flashes of light. Its eyes are like the rays of dawn. With each revelation, Job understood how limited his vision had been. Then Job fell with his face to the ground and spoke, I know that you can do all things. No purpose of yours can be thwarted. Before I had only heard of you, but now my eyes have seen you. His words were filled with humility and repentance. He recognized that he had tried to understand God's ways without possessing the full vision of the Creator. His heart bowed in total submission, accepting that divine wisdom was unsearchable and perfect. With this confession, the purpose of the trial was fulfilled. Silence hovered over the land. Job no longer needed answers, for he had gained something far greater, a deeper revelation of God. And in his infinite grace, the Lord was preparing to restore all that had been lost. Chapter 8: The Restoration and Final Glory. The Lord turned to Job's friends and rebuked them sternly. My anger burns against you, because you have not spoken the truth about me as my servant Job has. God instructed them to offer sacrifices and for Job to pray on their behalf, for only then would they be forgiven. And Job, despite all he had endured, interceded for his friends. He forgave them, proving his heart was free of bitterness. Then, God restored Job's life. Not only did he return what had been taken, but he gave him twice as much as he had before. His flocks multiplied, his home was rebuilt, and sons and daughters were born to bring him joy. His name was honored once more, and his prosperity surpassed that of his past years. Job lived for many years after his trial, witnessing his children and grandchildren to the fourth generation. His life became a living testimony of God's faithfulness, proving that even in suffering, there is purpose, restoration, and redemption for those who remain steadfast in faith. His journey, marked by pain, became an eternal story of unwavering faith and spiritual triumph. Chapter 9: The Lesson That Remains. The story of Job transcends time, serving as a beacon for those enduring trials. It teaches that faith should not waver in suffering, that divine justice cannot be measured by human standards, and that God always has a greater purpose, even when we cannot see it. Job never received a detailed explanation for his suffering, but he received something far greater, a deeper vision of God and a closer relationship with Him. His story challenges us to trust in the Lord, no matter the circumstances. Life may throw us into storms, we may lose everything, and we may feel abandoned, but Job assures us that God never forsakes His own. He is sovereign, He is just, and in His perfect time, He brings restoration to those who remain faithful. May Job's faith inspire us to keep our eyes fixed on the Creator, knowing that at the end of every trial, there is glory and redemption. Just as Job saw God's face in the midst of his suffering, may we also find him even in our darkest hours and trust that his love never fails. Like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more content. God bless you, and see you next time on Testaments of Faith. Thank you.